Flow theory is pretty basic stuff for game design. It is helpful to understand so that you can provide the player with challenges that will engage them while they are playing. Last week I made a video on flow theory, where we went over the basics and learned about flow graphs. Here's a card if you want to go back and watch the first video, or there's a link down below. We were investigating getting the player into a flow state and keeping them there. And at the end we arrived at this statement. And so in this video we're going to dig into keeping the player in the flow state by regulating the challenge we present them. This part. So let's talk about a few common ways to do this. And the first thing, and probably the biggest takeaway from the video, is going to be the tension curve. Hi, my name is Giggity McD, and here on the channel we talk about the ins and outs of game design so that you are equipped to analyse, discuss and create great games. The narrative tension curve has been around for ages. It is almost always seen when applied to the plotline of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. It looks like this. And it represents the tension the audience is feeling as the movie progresses, showing a progression of peaks and valleys as the story progresses. The reason it looks like this is because audiences burn out if the stakes keep rising. If you go from a foot chase, straight into a car chase, straight into a chase in fighter jets, the audience doesn't have any chance to rest and will become bored by the constant rise in tension. They burn out essentially. So when constructing a narrative, there needs to be sections where the audience has a chance to recover before raising the tension further in another big action scene. Flow follows a similar model. If we want the best feeling gameplay, we can't just make the player encounter harder and harder enemies. We need to follow a similar curve to make sure the player has a chance to recover from the intense moments before we throw them back into the hot water. So the progression that the player should follow through the challenges in the game should look like this. It's not a perfect match to the narrative pacing, but it's pretty similar. I find the world description is the best. If we have a set of worlds, the start of a world should be pretty tame in comparison to the end of that world. But then when moving to the next world, we should follow a similar pattern. The start of World 2 being harder than the start of World 1, but being easier than the finale of World 1. And we can adapt this idea to levels or to sections of a level, etc. These lulls also present good times to teach the players new skills. The mobile game 2 Dots does this well. You start with some easy levels, maybe a mechanic is introduced. You get a few levels where the playfield is more tricky, then you come across a hard level. Then after the hard level, we go back to easy levels and then repeat the process. The next thing we're going to be talking about is dynamic difficulty adjustments, or often shortened to DDA. This is a set of principles that are designed to push the player back towards the flow state. They are commonly applied though, to help push the player out of anxiety. They are applied less to making the game harder to bring the player up out of boredom. Usually it involves monitoring the player's status and making small adjustments to help them out when they really need it. A few examples are, in Doom 2016, when the enemy flashes a certain colour, you can use a glory kill on them. These glory kills release health vials to heal the player. If the player is low on health, more vials will be released to help get them out of a state that is near death. In Crash Bandicoot, if the player has died several times on a section, when respawning to the continue box, they will be awarded an Aku Aku mask. This functions as a hit point that may help the player in passing the section if they are dying to enemies or environmental hazards. In the boulder running levels, the game may also slow down the boulder if the player keeps dying to make it easier and easier. Another application of DDA of a different flavour is Valve's AI director in the Left 4 Dead games. In Left 4 Dead, the game would track how well the player performed on the last set of zombies they had to fight, and when the game needed to spawn more, it would try to spawn dynamically an amount that would challenge the player but also not overwhelm them immensely. Finally, the classic example, and a good example, of bringing the challenge up for players that are performing well, Mario Kart. Mario Kart will give better items to players further behind to help them get back into the race, and will give worse items to players in first, making being pack leader much more intense. These kinds of applications of DDA mean that the game can adjust its difficulty on the fly as the player plays the game. This means that if the level balance that the developers designed the game with doesn't fit the current player, well, the game has some cards up its sleeve to try and keep them in the flow state. There's an awesome talk by the guys at Witchbeam about how they have layered in a lot of these kinds of techniques to help make an engaging experience for the players of Assault Android Cactus, regardless of their skill level. Another commonly used way to help keep players in the flow state is centering the game around a leveling system. So a player that is level 30 should be a good match for a quest that is level 30. This puts responsibility for challenge back on the player and also somewhat surfaces the underlying difficulty of the task they are undertaking. Are you the same level as a quest? Well, it's probably a good fit for you. Are you a few levels ahead? Well, you might have some fun with the narrative and the systems, but the challenge may not be super imposing. A couple of levels below a quest, perhaps? How hard is too hard for you? You could go in now and see how you go, or you could do something else until your level is higher. Are you level 5 and that quest is level 38 in a level 40 zone? Might not be the best choice. This allows the player to pick their own battles to some extent. And we can see that these techniques are all leaning on providing the player an experience that is right for them. And sometimes it can be as simple as making a game easier to understand or to perceive. In the first 3 Uncharted games, ammo and weapons would appear as little flashing guns on the ground. But these can be pretty hard to see when you're trying to take cover from bullets and you are out of ammo. So a simple change to add a little column of light makes finding ammo a little less tense. Similarly, just putting time into creating a cohesive experience that is well designed, such as good signposting so the player doesn't get lost, will help keep the player in a flow state, as they won't be running around trying to find where they're going. And this is where I might leave it. Go and have a watch of the GDC talk by Witchbeam to see some examples of how these topics are layered over the top of each other in one single game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for Design Run next Friday.